Hey, so good evening, everyone. Welcome to our evening lecture on the Infinite Life Sutra. We'll begin with our Dharma request. 好，欢迎大家。我们今天会来研究《无量寿经》。我们先来请法，请大家合掌。我们可以比如说请三宝来加持。We can request the presence of the three jewels.
恭敬大德桑听，为此法会，尽一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何疗伤脱死，离苦得乐，速证无上。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto sujedoye alahadi samya sambuddhoje.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahadi samya sambuddhoje.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. All Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, Dharma Master, and all good and wise friends, both present and online, Amitofo. Welcome to our evening sutra lecture. Today is August 18th, 2022, and we're here at Berkeley Buddhist Monastery. And we'll continue to you could say, investigate what is the Pure Land like. As we said in the past, we're getting kind of a chance to get a tour, right? Kind of take a look, see where will we go if we make a vow to go to Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land. So we get the chance to know what the scenery is like. We get the chance to know what the buildings look like, even the animals. All the nice animals. Oh, you're watching us online. Jing Woshi wants to watch us as we talk too. It's like the Pure Land, right? You have mirrors upon mirrors. The jewels on the trees show all the infinite Buddha lands. So in our smartphone devices, you can see infinite realities right there. You want to probably make the sound. Okay. So, but we're actually particularly going to investigate today those inhabitants of Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land, the Bodhisattvas, who have very special qualities. If you really would imagine the people who were around you all had these qualities, what would it be like? 好，欢迎大家。我们今天会来继续研究无量寿经。我们这几个礼拜都是在说参观极乐世界是怎么样的。然后我们要去个地方，我们要去知道那个风景怎么样啊，跟那个建筑物怎么样啊，跟甚至于那个动物都怎么样。但是今天我们会来研究这些众生在，特别是菩萨在极乐世界是怎么样的，他们有什么样的功德啊，什么样的能力啊，我们就可以自己来观想。如果我们的身边的人都有这个能力，我们自己也有这个能力，会是怎么一回事？ 这个就是极乐世界的微妙的地方。好，那我们先来念阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛的圣号，请阿弥陀佛到我们心中。So let's begin by reciting Amitabha Buddha's name. Chance for us to invite Amitabha Buddha's presence into our hearts. Okay. Namo Amitabha Namo
好，诸佛菩萨先供上人，在座的法师，还有我们在座的佛友，还有我们线上的佛友，大家晚安大家很高兴，大家能够一起来研究佛说阿弥陀经。
对，不是佛说阿弥陀经。
佛说无量寿经。
Yeah, 无量寿经。Okay.
Yeah.
All Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, Dharma Master, and all good and wise friends, both here and online, we're very happy to have you tonight to come and investigate the Sutra of the Buddha's teachings on infinite life.
这个阿弥陀经是小经，这个阿弥陀经的大经就是无量寿经。所以我们大家能够一起来研究这个经典呢，非常重要，因为我们每天都有在念佛，然后我们大家都是这个南无莲池海会活菩萨之一，所以这个是非常重要。
So a moment ago, when Jing Fosher said what sutra we were going to study, he said we're going to study the Buddha teaches the Amitabha Sutra, but actually we're going to investigate the Infinite Life Sutra. But Jing Fosher said that The Infinite Life Sutra you can consider the longer Amitabha Sutra, and the other sutra is a shorter Amitabha Sutra. And this studying the Infinite Life Sutra is very important because it's connected with our recitation of Amitabha Buddha's name. We recite Amitabha Buddha's name every day, and you could say we are one of those potential bodhisattvas of the, they say, Qingliang Husa, it's the clear pool bodhisattvas, mahasattvas. So kind of the, maybe say the Pure Land Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
好，我们今天要研究的地方是在112页，我们的经文上啊，我说《无量寿经》112页的这个第二句一直到这个烦恼之患啊，灭除众生烦恼，这个大概中间呐，在这个112页的中间，那这个英文在113页，所以我们等一下，我们大家一起来念中文一遍，然后英文一遍。
So we're going to read the sutra text on page 112 and 113. So in the sutra text in Chinese, page 112, you'll see we actually are starting on the ninth character, so on the first line, but if you look at it, after that first period, which is a little circle, 具足成就无量功德, that's where we're going to start reading. And on page 113, we'll just read from the beginning.
好
Okay.
我们大家合掌一起来念啦。
Let's recite the sutra together. Palms together.
具足成就无量功德，得生禅定，诸通明慧，由至七觉，修心佛法，肉眼清澈，迷不分了，天眼通达，无量无限，法眼观察，究竟诸道，慧眼见真，能度彼岸，佛眼具足，觉了法性。在下面也，在下面。
Next one.
以无碍智，为人演说，等观三界，空无所有，自求佛法，具足辩才，灭除众生，除灭众生烦恼之患。好，我们英文的113页。
Perfecting all the bodhisattva's practices, they are replete with measureless merit and virtue. They realize profound dhyana samadhis, spiritual powers, insights, and wisdoms. They focus on the 7 factors of awakening, and their practice accords with the Buddha Dharma. Their physical eye is pure and penetrating. There is nothing it cannot distinguish. Their celestial eye penetrates everything without any limits or boundaries. Their Dharma eye thoroughly understands the various paths. Their wisdom eye sees reality, allowing them to cross over to the other shore. Complete in their Buddha eye, they awaken to the Dharma nature. They teach people with their unimpeded knowledge. They contemplate the 3 realms impartially, as empty and without an essential nature. Determined to learn the Buddha Dharma, they are replete with eloquence. They clear away living beings' afflictions.
好，我们还是来稍微解释这个经句的意思，然后呢，我们再来细讲晚上的这个关于这个经典的经句方面，所以 祭祖啊，这个从这个祭祖成就无量功德这个开始呢，也就是说，这个是在讲前面，你跟他看前面菩萨所行啊，就是说菩萨在在无量寿佛那里的菩萨，他们都是祭祖的这个圆满无量的功德。
So we will first go over the meaning of the sutra and then have a more detailed explanation. So this first section it says, perfecting all the bodhisattva's practices. So here you can say perfect, juju maybe say complete, or they are maybe successful in. They're replete, something used to replete with all the myriad merit and virtue from doing the bodhisattva practices.
然后呢，得生啊，得到很甚深的这个禅定啊，这个还有诸通明慧。像这个禅定，我们知道有四禅，有四禅，四禅当然，禅后面有定，这个有四禅，还有四定，然后呢，诸通明慧，这个算通啊，就是六通啊，明慧啊，我们知道有三明，六通，然后这个慧也有三慧，这个三慧，然后自有七劫，他们的这个神智呢，他们都是在修行这个七劫上面，这个七劫就是七菩提分啦。
So they also realized the profound dhyanas, samadhis, spiritual powers, insights, and wisdoms. So people know there's 4 dhyanas, and also 好像是八定啊，有8个还是4个定，4禅，然后再有4定。
有八定，
但是
这个我想这个禅定这个也有八定，4禅八定。
I think there's 8 samadhis. Maybe if you think about, maybe there's the 4 samadhis plus 4 dhyanas plus 4 more samadhis, so it makes a total of 8. The spiritual powers, which are 6 of them. Here is translated as insights. There's 3 of them. Sometimes they're translated as higher knowledges, the profound insights the Buddha had upon awakening. And then there's 3 wisdoms. They also focus on the 7 factors of awakening. I think these people might be familiar with Chi Puti Fen. In BTTS, we often translate it as the 7 Bodhi shares, but these are the 7 maybe qualities that we cultivate that support awakening. And their practice accords with the Dharma.
这个等一下我们会比较有详细来说明。所以呢，他们都是在修心佛法，他们都是在用心来修行这个佛法。所以呢，他们肉眼啊，就是说他们的这个，我们知道我们人啊都有肉眼，肉眼都是非常清明清澈的，迷不分了，没有不分明了了的，都是非常清澈、非常明了的。
So the first is talking about their physical eye. We all have one as well, a physical eye, and their eye is pure and penetrating, and it sees things very, very clearly. Here it says, there is nothing it cannot distinguish.
还有呢，像这些菩萨们呢，在那边他们都可以修到有天眼，天眼可以通达，他们都可以达到这个天眼。然后呢，还有这个无量无限，他这个天眼呢可以通达到没有什么限量，就是说可以达到很远的地方，没有限量。然后呢，法眼呢观察呢，可以究竟诸道，就是说他用这个法眼 来观察诸道。这个诸道应该是讲就是三乘的道，大中小，大乘、中乘、小乘的这个诸道。
So they also have the celestial eye, or the heavenly eye, or sometimes we can think of it as clairvoyance, which penetrates everything without any limits or boundaries. They also have a Dharma eye, which thoroughly understands the various paths. And Yingfo Shi specified that these paths are all these paths to awakening, the three vehicles, right? The path of the Shravaka, the Pratyeka Buddha, and the Bodhisattva.
所以，而且后面再继续经文讲，这个慧眼见真啊，他这个也可以得到这个慧眼，这个智慧之眼呢，可以见到真理，而且能渡彼岸。这些慧眼，它是能够去渡过彼岸，彼岸就是结岸。
So the wisdom eye sees reality and allows them to cross over to the other shore, to see things as they are.
所以呢，后面呢，佛言具足结了法性，所以呢，这些菩萨呢，他也都修到具足了这个佛眼，佛眼它是可以看到所有诸法。诸法的这个本性，这个法性。
So they also have the Buddha eye, which allows them to awaken to their Dharma nature.
所以呢，后面在经典继续讲，他以无碍智啦，佛是有无碍的智慧，所以当然他记住了这个了解这个佛法的这个本性呢，所以他能够得到无碍的这个佛智，来跟人家演说佛法。
So then they're able to teach people with their unimpeded knowledge, helping them understand the Dharma.
所以呢，而且他能够等观三界啦，就是说可以非常平等的来观察这个三界，三界就是我们的欲界、色界、无色界，就目前这个三界，都可以来普遍可以看到，这个三界。
So they can also impartially view these three realms. That's the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm. They're able to see all these realms as impartially, as empty, and without an essential nature.
而且呢，他们都了解空无所有，这个就是说，都是空的，没有所有的，都是来能够了解这个最重要，这个就是说没有执着啦，这样子。
So most importantly, this empty and without an essential nature kind of reflection helps them that they actually do not have any attachments, they don't cling.
所以呢，他们自求佛法，他们就是说来专心致力在这个求得这个佛法方面，然后呢，具足辩才，所以呢，他都可以得到具足所有的这个辩才的这个能力。
So they are determined to learn the Dharma, and they are replete with eloquence.
为什么要这样子的做？就是说，最重要能够灭除众生的这个烦恼之患。所以菩萨呢，最重要佛菩萨最重要就是来度众生，来灭除众生的这一些烦恼烦恼的这个祸患。因为众生有很多的烦恼。然后他都用来跟演说，所以用这个无碍智来演说，来破除这些众生的烦恼。
So they use their eloquence to clear away living beings' afflictions.
所以呢，我们知道这个菩萨是以众生之心呢为心呢，就是说他都是来照顾我们众生的这个的心来为心呢。然后其实这个就是来照顾我们众生烦恼的这些烦恼，所以他们最后他们这些菩萨都是可以具足无量的功德。
So these bodhisattvas, you could say, take living beings' hearts as their own heart, right? They really care about living beings. And through their care and cultivation, they are able to gather a great deal of merit and virtue, measureless, limitless merit and virtue.
Yeah, 所以就是像我们一开始我们今天的经文里面讲，具足成就无量功德，所以这些菩萨都具足了。
That's how we started this section about how the bodhisattvas, through perfecting the bodhisattva practices, are replete with measureless merit and virtue.
像刚才经文有讲到这个七劫就是我们来解释一下，这个就是七劫，就是七菩提分，劫就是觉悟这样子。
So we have the 7 factors of awakening. I want to explain the 7 factors of awakening.
所以呢，就是觉就是觉了观察的意思就是呢，你能够觉悟了，而且能够观察到，这个可以说是定慧均等的一个法。
定慧，
定跟慧
这
这个就是两个都均等
均等就是 balance
balance.
So these 7 factors of awakening, the Chinese word 觉, which is translated here as awakening or awaken, means to awaken or to understand, and it's, you could say, helps balance samadhi and wisdom.
那这个解法呢有7种所以我们讲第一个是解法，能够择解法，就是说能够去选择这个法是正确的，是正法的，所以我们择法解第一个。然后第二个是精进解，就是说你能够选择到了这个正法，那你就要精进来修行了，就是第二个精进解。
So the first factor is, maybe you could say, here you have it as 择法觉, which is almost like kind of selecting a dharma or kind of discerning the dharma. I think sometimes they also say investigation. So you kind of really understand, you kind of look into, and then after you really look into, then you apply energy. So you apply vigor.
Vigor, yeah. 所以你就勇猛的心呢，来最重要精进呢是要行真法，离开邪法，所以这个是精进解。
So here the vigor is you're going towards what is true, not what is crooked, not what is untrue. Right? We're aligning ourselves to what is beneficial and accords with how things are.
然后第三节呢，就是喜节因为你得到这个正法，然后勇猛精进来修行真法，然后你心里呢就得到这个善法，你会自己心里会生欢喜，所以有这个喜节。
So next one is joy or happiness, because you apply energy on the Dharma. You begin to feel the benefits, and there's a kind of a goodness that comes from it, a kind of joy that also rises in the heart.
然后第四个呢，你会觉得清安解，就是说因为你修行佛法，然后你有欢喜，然后你又因为当然你这个修行中呢，你会修行这个禅定止观这些的 这些所以你就可以得到非常快乐、很清安的这样子的心。
So the next one is you have light ease. Okay, you're really relaxed, right? Just if you cultivate Chan or Dhyana, or cultivate, you begin to find that your heart and mind and body become very peaceful and at ease. So this is number 4th factor. You feel this kind of deep inner peace.
Yeah. 也可以说呢，因为你修行了以后呢，你就断除心里面的这些粗重的这些事情啊，烦恼啊，这些你就断除了这个，所以你的心里呢就觉得非常清丽安适，非常的安详。
So you can think about it this way: as you cultivate, you begin to let go of the coarse afflictions, the kind of very heavy afflictions that dull the mind and make the body very uncomfortable and tense. And so as you let go of them, you find this kind of peace.
然后呢，第5个呢，就是念念觉就是说你的念觉里面呢，都常常分明，而且不忘，都非常均等，所以你的念呢就有定慧的这个，所以呢，这个就是有这样子一个念觉在。
So the next one is mindfulness. Number 5 is mindfulness. And you're not forgetting, you could say, to practice, that you're constantly having samadhi and wisdom in mind.
好，第6个呢就是定觉了，定就是说，因为你修学禅定啊这些，你心呢就定在一境，不散乱，所以你就得到这个定觉。
So the 6th is samadhi. It just means you're not scattered or distracted. You're focused.
好，第7个呢最重要的就是行舍觉，就是你的心里面，你的人呢都能够守掉这些觉，最重要。因为这些到最后都是一切法都要守一切法，所以你可以得到这个行舍觉。所以呢，那你舍了以后，你心都是非常平安，都非常在那里修行这样子。好。
So number 7 is that you have the dharma of letting go. 行舍 literally means applying, letting go. So we're able to, and by doing that, we can continue to improve in our cultivation. We don't cling, we don't hold on, we don't accumulate.
所以呢，依照这个经典讲啊，假如说你得到这个7觉呢，你就可以证到无邪位果。
无学位就是阿罗汉咯。
Yeah.
So by cultivating the 7 factors of awakening,
无邪啦
you can realize the, you can say the position beyond study as essentially the 4th-stage arhat. The first 3 stages are called those who still need to study, 有学, they still need to study.
Yeah.
In the 4th stage, one actually becomes an arhat and you are free of suffering. So just to help people who might know this list in a different way, these other way that people have translated these factors are investigation, vigor or energy, joy, tranquility, mindfulness, concentration, and the last one is equanimity. And so these 7 are wholesome qualities that we can actually cultivate in our hearts, in our minds, in our bodies, and use them for our daily practice.
好，我们再下来我们要讲禅定啦。刚才经典上有，你可以得到这个禅。其实这个四禅我们都会了解到，四禅八定，那这个其实这个四禅呢， 其实来讲是我们欲界的四禅，初禅、一禅、二禅、三禅、四禅。
你说四禅是我们欲界的，
欲界的这个四禅，然后呢，另外四禅也有包括四定，然后再加上四定是无色界的这个，总共有八定，四禅八定。那这个四定呢是色界的这个四禅定，色界的四禅定，再加上无色界的四禅。
这里有，就说欲界这个四禅是色界的，不是欲界的。欲界没有四禅了，你到初禅就你去吃那个色界了已经了，对不对？
已经入色界了。
对 So for the dhyanas, the four dhyanas, the four dhyanas are basically you enter the form realm. So you leave the realm of sensual desire, and so in our realm here, it's a lot of sensual desire. And then when you enter the dhyanas, you actually put that down and you enter the form realm. And here, Jingpo Shi reads about the four samadhis that are in addition to the four dhyanas. You enter into the formless realm, right? I think the realm of empty space, the realm of infinite consciousness, the realm of nothingness, and the realm of neither perception nor non-perception. So the four formless realms.
所以这个色界的四禅，然后又加上这个四定，然后再加上无色界的这个是无色定，所以总共四禅八定这样子。
So this is why there's 8 samadhis. So there's the 4 dhyanas, and then there's the 8 samadhis, which are the 4 dhyanas plus the 4 formless samadhis. So it makes 8 samadhis.
所以大家有兴趣大家可以自己去研究。其实我们上年好像在打坐的时候也有讲过这个。
Yeah, Master Hua talked about these for sure.
Yeah. 我们的以前在万佛圣城打禅期的时候，都会读到上人的开示。
So Master Hua explained these in our Chan session. 可能解释一下那个七菩提分。I think it might be useful for these 7 factors of awakening just to unpack them a little bit. They're actually quite important for our practice. And so first, Jingpo Shi mentioned about investigation. And this is something that sometimes we might not appreciate about the Buddha Dharma, and especially if we're saying, oh, let's just have faith. Let's have faith in Amitabha Buddha and just believe in Amitabha Buddha and we'll go to the Pure Land. That's definitely one approach. But here you could see that in the Dharma, there's actually a wholesomeness in investigation, in kind of being curious, of wanting to learn more. When we were at DRBU, just recently starting out, a group of us here were reflecting what makes DRBU, maybe we say unique or special. Of course, there's many places that have this kind of quality as well, but we felt actually there's a sincere wish to learn, a love of learning. And I think that's something DRBU really contributes to higher education, where it's not about becoming an expert and then defending my point of view, but rather about being humble and curious and wanting to learn from everyone. And as we learn more, I think all we learn is we don't know so much. So there's more to learn, right? The Dharma realm is infinite. And so we open our hearts, open our minds to really investigating, really exploring, really inquiring. So that's the first one. So really look into things. Don't just take things at their surface level, but say, really, what's going on here? For instance, if we have suffering in our life, like we constantly get into arguments with other people, or we're really hostile or irritated or resentful, So what's going on there? What's happening? And for instance, I was sitting on a class on the Buddhist classics. We were reading one of the suttas where the Buddha answered Lord Shakra, right, the king of the gods, the lord of the gods. He asked the Buddha a question that I thought is maybe a question many of us might have. This is the inquiring mind. He says, living beings wish to live, peacefully. They wish to not fight, not go to war, not be hateful and angry. Living beings long for this peace. If this is the case, World Honor One, why is that living beings live in hate so much? Right? If you look at our current world, and we see wars, for instance, Ukraine and Russia, and we see in our own America, oftentimes in the political realm, or maybe in our families, there's kind of hate in the air, there's kind of hostility in the air. And so why do we have to live like this? And so how does the Buddha respond? How would you respond, right? You say, somebody asks you, we really want to live in peace, but why do we end up living in hate? Perhaps we would say something like, well, it's because other people don't agree with me. They're wrong and I'm right, and therefore, that's why there's a problem. We just need to eliminate all those people who are, got the wrong idea about things. Okay, yeah, that's one way to look at it. But the Buddha didn't use that actually. He went something very subtle. One of the students actually's first response was that because people have different points of view, right? Because somebody might like this, somebody might like that, and then we have different ways of seeing things, and so that's why we have anger and resentment. Yeah, that's a pretty good way to look at it. But I thought what's interesting was the Buddha really unpacked that. Because we could have different points of view, but not have to hate each other, right? Taking Fosher and myself don't always see things exactly the same way. We're definitely different generations. But I think we generally live in peace. I think Fosher is very peaceful. So maybe I'll give the Buddha's answer after I translate. 所以讲这个七菩提分，这是第一个是这个中文是怎么说？是责法分吗？责法分，就是来研究。我们就不是我们信一个东西就完了。我知道了，我不用再学了。这个是一个好学的心。我们在这边在讨论法大的时候，法界大学，我们想这个法界大学有没有一个特色？有没有一个地方是很可以说不可以说这是特色，就是别的地方没有。但说一个东西是，我想是很难得的，我们很感恩有的，是什么呢？是这个好学的心。我们大家都在这边，不是要变成一个 expert， 中文怎么说 expert， 就是知道很多东西，
就是非常特殊，
就是说完全理解一件事情。我说我很聪明，什么都知道了。没有要这样子的一个态度。有时候我们在教育当中，我们学习就是变成我们像一个 expert， 什么都知道了，然后要跟别人辩论，告诉大家我们这个东西是我们最知道的，别的东西都不对的，这个是我知道是对的，对不对？有这样子的一个方式来学习。但是我们在法大是怎么学呢？是我们很谦虚的心学。我们学到多少，不是说我知道这么多，反而是说我知道我多么不知道的东西，因为这个世界上法界的东西真的是太多了可以学，所以我们不会说好像我什么都知道，或者我什么都愿意学，就这样子一个精神。比方说呢什么呢？我也在一个法达课在研究一个巴黎文的一个经典，那个 chakra Lord Chakra 中文是什么？那个因陀罗，就是
天主嘛，
就是天主就是叫什么？叫因陀罗吗？
因陀 chakra
是中文是
四体反应啊。
四体反应， 就他就是在神里面那个最有力量的，
最高的
33天，
嗯，
对，所以对33天，天主对，他是天主，他就问佛陀怎么问呢？说众生呢都想要在平安，都想平安，为什么众生都这么多嗔恨，常常住在嗔恨当中？他们想要平安呢？佛陀就怎么回答？像我们怎么回答？有人说：“哎呦，跟你问，我们都想要平安耶，为什么常常就是生活在嗔恨心？像国家会战争，看到有些像在那个俄国跟 Ukraine 怎么说？叫中文怎么说？那个
乌克兰
他们有打竞争，
俄罗斯跟
对啊，就竞那个战争啊。然后你看我们这个美国的国家呢，很多时候我们在那个政府里面就这样这个竞争啊，两边都会吵啊，会这样这个不高兴啊，嗔恨的心啊。然后我们看我们家庭也会有这样子发生，像夫妻吗？不是夫妻，叫你说那个妈妈跟爸爸怎么说？那个叫夫妻吗？夫妻两个都会，夫妻都会吵架，会两个都。虽然我们想要住在一个和和平平的家庭，但是好像怎么变成我们家庭不是和和平平的，是很多像战争一样的，变战争一样，很多紧张，很多害怕，很多烦恼，怎么一回事？怎么发生的？我想一个回答呢是怎么样的？我们可能说，我们一般的想法，很多时候说为什么会有嗔恨心？这个为什么我们平安不能平安呢？为什么？是因为某某人他的这个想法是不对的，他的想法真的是让我很大的烦恼，因为他的受不了他。我们都是这样子的来研究东西，所以怎么方式呢？我们把他赶走，跟他不理他，我把我的心不要他在这边，就有一个回答。但是这样子回答说真的是怎么样呢？反而让我们嗔恨心更强。我们在法拉课里面有一个学生就说：“可能是因为我们不同的想法、不同的看法，会有怎么说？会有竞争，会有争执，对啊，所以蛮不错的，是真的，我们会有不同的想法。但佛陀这个回答呢，他更深的去看，因为什么呢？你可以看我们有不同的看法，不是说我们一定会需要战争，或者我们会有嗔恨。好像我刚刚说，净佛师跟我可能有对东西不同的看法呢，因为我们的年龄不同，净佛师比我长辈多少？可能36年了，还没有36年，可能24年，24年，36年，我40，你是76，这36年了哇！怎么看36年的不同？但是我们可以说不用嗔恨我们可以很平安、很和和的生活。所以我想，我们去更深的去看的时候，我们去想一想佛陀是怎么回答的。So it actually really stuck with me because it was something that really gave a way to investigate where does irritation and hostility come from. And so the Buddha's response to Lord Chakra was that hostility came from envy and stinginess. I said, envy and stinginess? That's interesting. Why would it come from envy and stinginess? Envy 是什么？嫉妒。所以佛陀就怎么回答？他就怎么回答那个因陀罗？
你说
envy， 对 envy 嘛，是好像嫉妒心一样。嫉妒心，我想你有东西，我要那个东西。我有这个 envy， 是嫉妒心，对不对？嫉妒心。所以佛陀说怎么来的这个嗔恨呢？是嫉妒心跟 stingy 是小气心，我们小气。所以奇怪，我会想到说是 envy and stinginess， 我没有想到是嫉妒跟那个什么小心不小心那个怎么说 stingy 什么那个小 stingy 是你不要跟别人布施，这 stingy 叫什么？我很stingy 小气，小气是小气，我很小气，为什么会这样的来呢？ So we discussed it, and since then I've also been reflecting on it. And I think it's because if you look at it, not just kind of superficially, like, oh, somebody's envious or stingy, kind of, but really looking in our hearts, what does envy feel like? Somebody else has something that we feel like we should have. And so there's a kind of an irritation, kind of a kind of, I want that, but I don't have it, and he has it, or she has it. And how can I get it for myself? And how come they don't deserve it? I deserve it. How come? And there's a little, a little sort of hostility starts to come. Or stinginess is because we don't have the heart to actually allow other people to exist. We need to protect our space. It's kind of like this closed-heartedness, right? So one heart is actually a heart that's looking outside, comparing, kind of competitive, right? Our society has so much competitiveness. We're always comparing and want to be the best. I want to be the best. I want to be in control. I want to, conquer. And so that's the envy. And then the stingy is this kind of closed-heartedness. And I reflect on myself and says, wow, yeah, I see that. I see that in myself. I see that wanting to be the best, wanting to be in control. And I can see how that creates this irritation and hostility in myself and creates tension in the people around me. And I also see how this envy, this stinginess, this close-heartedness where, I get something and I don't want to share it because I like this, so, I'm going to keep it. Also creates hostility because I'm keeping people away from my stuff, I need to protect it. And so my hostility almost creates this kind of like barbed wire around my thing, stay out of the way, it's mine, and if you touch it, I'm going to, do something, and you're going to be unhappy. So this kind of painful, irritated frequency gets put out, very subtly sometimes. I don't know if I can go into more because I don't want to take too much time, but the Buddha continues in this sutra to explain where does this envy and stinginess come from? Or where does envy and stinginess come from? The Lord Chakra asked the Buddha, okay, so that's wonderful, Lord Onwa, I can see how that works. But where does envy and stinginess come from? Right? And the Buddha continues to explain, like and dislike. We have our preferences. And he goes down, down, down to desire, to the way our mind conceives of things, to the whole way we have a reality that is based on biases and prejudices. I won't go into great detail, but if you're interested, you can find the sutta yourself. It's actually in the Buddha's words by Bhikkhu Bodhi. He translated it there. And I think the title of it is, Why Do Beings Live in Hate? It's like a little title. Why do beings live in hate? 所以我在想这个嫉妒心跟这个小气心为什么会让我们会有这个嗔恨呢？这个竞争呢？为什么呢？这个嫉妒心呢，我想是因为别人有东西我们没有，那我们要。我想我们在这个可以说竞争的社会，这个 capitalism， 我们很多时候会跟别人比较，我们想第一名。特别在美国很大的这个压力，这个习气就是我们要第一名，我要是最好的，我要最好的，我是最好的，别人不要跟我这么好，如果别人比我们好，我们就嫉妒心了，我要比他好。但我们有这样子的这个个性呢，就变成会有常常有冲突，就这个竞争的这个嗔恨的心就出现了，因为我们一直在跟别人这个比较，这个比较不是从一个怎么说学习的心，是要一个我要赢的心，我要比你好的心，不是一个真正慈悲好学的心，对不对？不是去研究来学习的心。然后呢，这个小气的心是怎么样？这个心就变成很窄了，我们不愿意布施，不愿意大方， 反而我们有我们的这个东西，那我们要保护，可能是一个不知道什么，有人像现在社会可能是有钱啊，或者我们有一个想法，我们可能有一个想法，因为我的想法是最好的、对的，别人跟我一个想法，我就说他不对，因为我要保护我的想法。可能我想法以为怎么说？我想佛教里我们有一个这个发生，会说我说净土宗是最好的，有人说我禅宗是最好的，就有竞争。为什么？因为我是变成我们心不大方，不能说我看你是很喜欢禅宗的，我想支持你学禅宗，没问题。别人说我看你喜欢学净土宗，我觉得净土宗是非常好的。虽然我是禅宗为主，但是我可以从你学习净土宗，但就变成一个和的这个精神，对不对？所以我想这个经文就很有意思，可以继续去研究，继续去观想。这个因为那个Shakra 呢，他就问佛陀：我们有这个嫉妒心跟这个小气心呢，来开始我们会有这个嗔恨心。我知道，理解，好，知道，非常好，非常感恩我理解。但是这个嫉妒心跟这个小气心是从哪里来的？他就是那个 Shakra 就是用这个法，这个责法的去学习去研究。佛陀就再跟他讲这个心这个嫉妒心跟这个小气心是从哪里来的？是从我们喜欢这个东西，不喜欢这个东西，然后再去研究这个欲望的心，这个常常这个想法的这个念头，就变成这个欲望就开始就出现。这个从我们的一个很多这个妄想跟无明的这样子来出现，所以佛陀非常详细的来也解释给这个 Chakra Lord Chakra。有人有兴趣，自己可以去巴利文里面去找这个经典，在一个 PUTB 就有翻译成英文，叫他翻译成说为什么我们众生在嗔恨心生活。所以我想我可能这个7个都不讲，但是我讲第一个法，第一个就是责法这个分，但每一个这个分呢，都是愿你去真正去研究的。你会看到你这个7分都用的，可以说有一点效果呢，就可以有在修行上的这个进步。So these, I won't go into all the 7 factors maybe, but just want to point to the first one. You kind of see how it works and see how powerful they are in terms of leading us to liberation. And if we cultivate all 7 of these, they really support us on the spiritual path. Okay, so just explain a little bit.
好像这个嗔恨心，
嗔恨心，
以前我们讲法的时候，有人在问。
有人问，刚好啊，那这样子回答。
有问过了，就他说这个有，我们好像已经都回答过了。好，我们再来继续讲我们的经典。这个经典里面呢，有讲这个三明就是这个明应该还没有讲嘛哈。
三明没有，三明是 3 higher knowledges。
就其实这个佛是讲三达，然后三明是讲在罗汉他是讲三明的。这个三明呢，哪三明？就是宿命明，就是说他知道他这个他手势他都知道他以前他的这个过去世的这个生死是怎么样，他都宿命明，第一个。然后第二个是天眼明，就知道说这个天眼他知道来世他要去哪里这样子，他都生死他都能够知道。第三个是漏尽明，就是说这个一切的烦恼他都能够没有断掉一切这个烦恼的这个智明。所以呢这个是三明。
所以三明那个第二名，特别是自身跟他身都理解，自身跟他身都理解 ，self and others。
这个是天
这个是天
眼
天眼，对天眼明，
天眼啊，
对。So the three ming here means understandings or insights. Sometimes I think in the Theravada tradition they call it the three higher knowledges. This is actually what the Buddha realized under the Bodhi tree, how it's explained in the Theravada tradition. So he was cultivating under the Bodhi tree and he realized three knowledges that brought him to awakening. And so the first one is seeing past lives. So he was able to see his past lives. He saw samsara, right?
宿命
Suming, seeing past lives. Then he was able to have the second higher knowledge, where he's able to see the lives of all beings. So future,
未来的
未来，
天眼，
天眼. So he's able to see. Jing Fosher points particularly to the future lives of beings, and so that's the second higher knowledge. So basically, that ability to see the past lives expands to the future and also to all beings. And the third one is the higher knowledge of having no outflows, of kind of
断掉一切烦恼。
breaking through all the afflictions. And so this is actually quite interesting in terms of just reflecting on it, in terms of the Buddha, and through his cultivation was able to see causation very deeply, right? And by seeing causation so deeply, he was able to get free. So again, on this principle we just talked about before, about investigation. The Buddha was investigating. He wasn't just taking something on faith and then, just saying, okay, I understand everything now. No, he was saying, I don't know what this birth and death is all about. I really need to investigate. 所以这个刚刚金佛学解释了这个三明的好。
然后这个三会啊，三会就是闻思修嘛。你依照这个见闻经教，然后产生智慧，就是闻慧。然后思慧呢，你就是说思维这个道理就可以产生智慧。第三个修，你修禅定呢，就也可以产生这个智慧。所以这个闻思修呢，这个就是一个断惑正理的这个重要的这个三会。
So here it says wisdoms, and what are the wisdoms? There's three of them. Chinese say 闻思修. Wen is like learning, you can maybe say. You study.
闻啊，闻就是说 ，yeah, learning.
Learning, yeah, learning.
Yeah.
Study, yeah. So for instance, this is the wisdom that comes from reading books, right, through words and language. So if we are here at the Sutra lecture and we hear, this talk.
听法。
Yeah, 听. Also listening, like right now, listening to the Dharma. So this is cultivating that first kind of wisdom of learning. The si is sometimes you can translate it as reflection, as you contemplate, you hear the teachings, but then you have to reflect on it and go, how does this really work? How does it apply to my life? You let the kind of Dharma settle in the heart, settle in the body, and it begins to kind of smelt, kind of digest inside. And then we don't just do that, we cultivate it, meaning we apply it. So for instance, we just learned about how we can live in hate, or maybe a way to not live in hate. So we can actually, if we're learning it, we can reflect on it. Is this true in my own life? Does my hostility and irritation come from envy and stinginess? From always wanting to be the best and not being generous with what I have? Is that the place my hostility comes from? And if that's the case, then maybe I can let those go. Maybe I don't have to compete all the time. And so that's when we start to cultivate. We start to say, maybe I can share. Maybe I can let other people have the best thing. Right? So that's taking it into reality. making a reality. So 闻思修, those are the three wisdoms.
好啊，我们今天来讲一个大智论里面的第17篇呢，有一个故事，这个故事叫做四禅比丘。
So this story comes from the
大智论。
Da Zi Luan, the treatise on great wisdom, probably the treatise on Maha Prajna. And this is in the 17th
对，好，
17卷吗？
应该是第17啦，大智论第17。
I don't know if it's the Jun, but it's maybe chapter 17, and it's about the bhikshu of the fourth dhyana.
因为呢，他这个他是一个佛弟子，就是佛陀的弟子，他这个是一个比丘，因为他得了这个四禅，我们刚才有讲了四禅嘛，四禅定嘛，然后他得了这个四禅呢，他就生了这个真身傲慢，他就得了禅定，他就生傲慢心这样子。
So there is a monk, a bhikshu, a Buddha's disciple, who realized the fourth dhyana. When he realized the fourth dhyana, he became arrogant. He had a kind of pride. Oh, I got the fourth dhyana.
也因为他得了这个四禅嘛，他就得到四圣道嘛，入圣流道嘛，所以他就像初禅呢，他就是得到悉陀梵国嘛，那第二禅呢就得到斯陀含国，那第三禅呢得阿那汉国，那第四禅呢他就得到阿罗汉国，因为他得到这个四圣道，这个到阿罗汉国。
所以他以为
这个比丘啦，
他以为
不是以为他得到了，他实际上他得了这个。
他得了阿罗汉果啊。
有啊，四禅嘛，他等一下会讲这个故事。
Okay, so I'll translate it, and then people can try to understand it. But basically, Jing Fo Shi was saying that he entered the path of the sages. For the first dhyana was realizing the stage of Shotapanna, or stream enter. The second dhyana was that of a once returner. The third dhyana was that of a non-returner, and the fourth dhyana was that of the arhat.
因为他呢，他得到这个四圣道这个四果以后呢，他就不再精进了，他起傲慢心嘛，他不再精进，然后呢。
所以可以问，他是以为他得到四禅都是四阿罗汉，
他已经真的得到了，
但阿罗汉不会有教阿慢心了。
没有，他还没有讲的这个。OK， 他得到这个四禅以后呢，他要往生了，他那时候他见到这个四禅的这个中阴身来了，他要往生的时候，他中阴身都会来嘛。就是人的这个灵魂会来，这个，然后，他就生了这个邪见，他邪见我入这个涅槃无什么涅槃，就是说，他说他要死以前，他就入了这个。无余涅槃了，原来是因为他这个起的邪见呢，说原来是佛陀在欺骗我。
So there time came when he was entering rebirth, and he was going to die, but he still kind of has an intermediate skanda body, which is basically this. In-between transitional state before rebirth. And he thought, I should have realized Nibbana without remainder. So he had this wrong view. And so he actually criticized the Buddha, says, the Buddha tricked me, the Buddha cheated me.
他 他说他入无以涅盘，所以呢，他生出这个邪见以后呢，他就失掉这个市场这个中阴身呢，他就看到这个阿比尼里就是地狱里面的这个中阴身相，他就看到。
So he then had this wrong view, this kind of you could say judgment, harsh judgment of the Buddha, and so his actual at that moment before his rebirth consciousness that was going to continue on was a kind of a image of the fourth dhyana, but now it shifted to actually one of the hell realms. I think it says Avicii hells. I think that like a really negative, one of the worst hells.
出现，然后他真的命他死了以后，他就升到阿比地狱去。
So he really was reborn in the Avicii hells.
所以呢，他那时候呢，因为他升到哪里，那其他的比丘呢，他也因为他其实这个人是很用功在修禅定的，所以呢就问佛佛去问比丘去问佛，那佛就跟他讲，他问比丘，这个比丘问佛是说，这个人呢，他都在阿兰若就是说比较非常安静的地方，在那里修行，他命中以后，他升到哪里去？这个比丘在问佛那佛就告诉说他升到阿比地狱去。
So the other monks, when this monk passed away, were curious about where he was reborn because they thought, wow, he was an extremely vigorous Chan practitioner or meditator. He lived in the solitude, in a kind of peaceful place, very vigorous in his practice as a meditator. So they asked the Buddha, where did he go? Where was he reborn? And the Buddha told them he was actually reborn in the Avicii hells.
所以呢，那时候的比丘呢，比丘们就大的吃惊，就是非常的惊讶，所以这个人呢，坐禅持戒呢，这样子他在这样子的修行呢，这个为什么他会升到阿比地狱去？那佛陀再继续跟他们比丘讲。
So these monks were completely kind of flabbergasted or just surprised. Wow, he was such a vigorous Chan practitioner, meditator. He held the precepts. How come he would be reborn in the Avicii hells? So the Buddha answered them.
他说这个人呢，他是非常真善慢，就是说他非常傲慢的。他得了释禅的时候呢，他说他得到这个释道，就是得到这个初禅，一直到这个阿罗汉释道释禅这样子。
So the Buddha told them, actually, it was because he was very arrogant. He realized the four dhyanas, but he believed thought he realized the four stages of awakening.
所以呢，他临命终时的时候呢，他就看到这个释禅的这个中阴身他这个要死的时候看到，那时候呢，他也就生出他的邪见，他自己的想法。他说：“这个是无以涅槃，我是阿罗汉。”
So he, at death, he saw his kind of rebirth consciousness with the fourth dhyana kind of mark. And he said, this must be nirvana without remainder because I am an arhat.
所以呢，他还想说，这样子佛好像在欺骗我一样，所以这个都是邪知邪见。所以呢，他有这样子的这个邪见呢，他就见到 阿比尼这个中阴身像，他就升到这个阿比地狱去，这样子。
So he thought, oh, this is what Nibbana's like? I thought it was, completely free. So he actually thought the Buddha tricked me, cheated me. And so he had this deviant or kind of misguided and wrong view. And so he ended up actually in the hells, in the Vichy hells.
所以这个是市场比丘，是这个一个算非常不好的这个邪知邪见的这个事情了。
So this is one story that really says how dangerous, how bad having, you could say, wrong views are.
所以呢，我想我们还是也最重要还是要老实念佛，这个是最
Most important is we need to honestly recite the Buddha's name. I think actually it's a very important story, also for myself, in terms of just kind of reflection and cultivation, is how dangerous pride is. We can be doing all the externals well, right? We hold the precepts, for lay people maybe 5 precepts, maybe as monastics we take 250. And then we can spend our time cultivating, like meditating, right, or reciting, and saying, I'm really going to, use my life on the spiritual path. But what's tricky is the pride slips in. It's kind of like thinks I'm special in some way. I'm really accomplished in some way. I'm getting better and better, and I'm, there's this kind of energy of pride that's sometimes hard to catch. It's very hard to catch because it feels a little bit, it kind of feels a little bit good in a kind of confused way, because it fills us up with a kind of sense of confidence that's actually coming from lack of confidence, because we're a little bit afraid that maybe we're not making progress, so we're kind of needing something to kind of make us feel like what we're doing is okay, and gets us to kind of feel good about ourselves. But it's very dangerous because it inflates the ego, inflates kind of who we think we are, and even though we're walking on the spiritual path, as Jing Fo here just said, we're ready for a fall because it's not based on reality. It's one point when the ego inflates, at some point it pops, and the pride is seen for what it is, which is this empty hot air, just hot air. And I know because I definitely have this affliction to kind of see the mind that goes, oh, I'm somehow special, or somehow important, or somehow I'm making progress that's really fast on the path or something. And that's just the ego just kind of taking the cultivation and making it part of the identity, rather than the cultivation actually really letting go. Saying, you know what, as I cultivate, I'm actually willing to do more and more simple things with a heart of service, with a heart of gratitude. Right? That's the direction we want to go in. 因佛教这个故事就是非常重要的，就是这个骄傲心很容易就可以走错路。我们可以在外表都 OK， 可以说持戒啊，可以说修行啊、打坐啊、念佛啊、诵经啊，都好像事事当当的，我是好像都是对的。但是如果我们心有这个骄傲心啊，觉得好像我很特别，或者我是最好的，这慢心，这个很可以说很危险。看这个故事，这个为什么危险呢？因为我们就变成不是真正老老实实，反而我们想要我想要进步，我可能这样子，这个心是从哪里来的？是从一个有点可以说可能有时候是个害怕心，一个没有真正这个对自己有信心，对佛法有信心。我是想要快一点，我想要一个证明我是在对的东西，这样子一个骄傲心就会要我就证明我是最好的。 但是这个骄傲冒性就可能像这个空气的这个 balloon， 一个噗噗更大更大，有久而久之就噗就跑，然后我们都空了。这个不好就是空了，就可能在这个比丘就到地狱了。非常
因为最
非
重要就是
常危险。
中阴身，就是你要死的时候，这一段时间非常重要。
So during this time of the rebirth process, your 中阴身, your mind, what your mind does is extremely important. That's why reciting the Buddha's name is a very good method. 为什么念佛很好？你就不会有至少你不会起很多别的这个妄想。
对，
就是好好念佛就可以去极乐世界。
其实我还有一个很好的这个
故事，
但是我想我还有2、3个啦，我想我们
下一次可以再去研究。
来研究。那因为我们每个礼拜我们都有讲这个我们的这个中国的八音啊，八音啊，我们大部分都介绍过了，像什么跑啊，还有客家的八音，3个礼拜，客家的八音。那今天我想来，因为我们讲这个八音，就是你知道钟啊、琴啊、那个笙啊，这一些的八音乐器，它这个最重要就是来给我们传统上家庭国家的吉祥啊、庆典啊这些来用的。
So there's in China 8 sounds, and so they were talking about what are the 8 sounds. There are 8 different instruments, and they were used. Looks like it says in imperial orchestras. So there's metal, stone, earth, skin, wood, and the gourd. These are the 8 sounds. So Jing Fosher wanted to share more about this.
Yeah. 所以真正这个都乐器啊，它有的用金啊、石头啊、土啊，或者丝绸啊这些来做竹子啊这些的八音嘛。所以它这个有不同的音响。那我们有介绍过了，以前几个星期都有介绍。然后，所以今天呢，我们来特别介绍这个蛮啊，汉蛮就是满清啊，这是满清啊，满清他大部分都在东北一带的这个人呢，他们的这个八音机会的一个情况，所以我们在线上，在网络线上呢，都可以查得到。这个满族满啊，汉满、蒙、藏、苗五族这个满族。
So we're now going to 有个聚会是弹这个八音啊。
他们在聚会在做。
So we're going to listen to maybe an orchestra that plays with these 8 sounds.
好，我们来听一下这个 ，OK，
那给大家听吗？
也可以啊，可以啊。
OK, 1, 2, 3.
天发扬啊，是你不可放下。
我们完了这个
那个是八音吗？刚刚是八音吗？还是只是一
他
个
们在庆
庆祝？
祝了，庆祝八音了。
有庆祝八音啊？哦，
有八音在庆祝
就
里面，
你们
他们
都有这个八音在里面。
我们
So there's 8
上
sounds all in there.
上个礼拜有客家八音，就真的八种音，大家在做那个客家八音。
客家八音。
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So I hope that made you happy. Or maybe it's a little joy, maybe a little, I don't know about too much tranquility, but maybe some tranquility.
Yeah. 上个礼拜很多人喜欢。Yeah, but 我们发音弄一些我们听法比较严肃，我们大家来一起来欣赏这个八音聚会也是很好。Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 好，我们时间到了，我们想今天到这里。
回向功德。
回向功德。
Dedicate merit. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace, with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. 3 bows. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Amidofo. That concludes our evening lecture.
下礼拜再继续。
Hope everyone can join us for our next week.
And 明天礼拜五我们有念佛，12点半到1点，然后在司法师讲法1
We
点。
still have our Amitabha recitation, 12:30 to 1 o'clock, and then Brahma Hangshur will lecture from 1 to 2. Okay, wish everyone well. Amitofo.
阿弥陀佛，祝大家平安吉祥快乐。No question? No.